the Medal of Honor, the United States' highest award for valor in combat. Fewer than 3,600 of the over 41 million who have served in the armed forces of the United States have been honored to wear the medal for actions above and beyond the call of duty. It embodies the sacrifices of all our service members, the history of our armed forces, and the values that have shaped the nation over the centuries: courage, commitment, integrity, sacrifice, citizenship, and patriotism. When the American Revolution began in 1776, the newly formed American forces wanted to distance themselves from the privileged aristocracy of Europe. As a nation founded on the value of the common man, medals felt too much like the trappings of the British and European monarchs and nobility. So despite the many acts of valor exhibited during the war, there were no medals distributed to officers or enlisted men by the Continental Congress. It would be our young nation's greatest challenge that caused Congress to reevaluate its stance on military honors. Humiliating Union defeats early in the Civil War proved that the Confederacy would not be defeated quickly, and desertion was running high. The military needed a way to maintain morale and make an example of those who performed their duties heroically. In December 1861, Senator James Grimes, along with Secretary of the Navy Gideon Welles, proposed legislation to introduce an award for valor in the Navy to honor those risking their lives to maintain the Union and encourage others to join the fight. The medal would be presented to those that shall most distinguish themselves by their gallantry in action and other seamanlike qualities. On December 21, 1861, Congress approved the legislation, and the Navy Medal of Honor was born. Not to be outdone, the Army had Senator Henry Wilson introduce similar legislation in February 1862, creating an Army Medal of Honor. It was signed into law 6 months later, in July. The first Medals of Honor were presented to members of the Andrews Raiders, Union Army soldiers who commandeered a train and used it to destroy Confederate telegraph lines, bridges, and railroad tracks, the lifelines of Southern infrastructure and communication systems. The Raiders were captured and placed in prison camps. 8 were tried and executed as spies, but 6 others were released as part of a prisoner exchange. In March of 1863, those 6 would be presented with the first Medals of Honor for their acts of courage and commitment to the Union cause in the face of fierce Confederate opposition. Despite undergoing several redesigns since its creation, the symbolism on the medal itself has always taken cues from the purpose, strength, and bravery of the individuals who wear it. The initial designs depicted Minerva, the Roman goddess of wisdom and war, representing the United States. She was shown fighting discord, the embodiment of the nation's enemies. Laurel and oak leaves, symbols of victory and strength, fill in the branches of the 5-pointed star. 34 stars representing the 34 states at the time of the Civil War surround the central figures. The Army was the first to alter its design. The ribbon at first resembled the flag, with a rectangle of blue above red and white vertical stripes. In 1896, to avoid confusion with the Grand Army of the Republic medal design, the Army ribbon was changed to red, white, and blue vertical stripes. In 1904, the ribbon changed again to a simple light blue with 13 white stars representing the original colonies, and the central figures on the medal were changed to a profile of Minerva's head surrounded by a green wreath of laurel leaves. The Navy adopted the same ribbon in 1913. A few years later, the Navy created a second design of its medal to distinguish between those who had received it for combat actions versus non-combat actions. Because naval ships presented dangers and opportunities for valor beyond enemy engagement, many sailors had received the medal for actions involving fires or sinking vessels. To highlight those who had received the medal for combat, the Navy introduced a cross-shaped medal designed by Tiffany and Company. The Tiffany Cross was almost immediately distributed incorrectly. The Navy discontinued non-combat awards in 1942 and returned to using only the familiar star-shaped design. The U.S. Air Force introduced its design in 1965, even though it had become its own branch in 1947. It kept the laurel and oak leaves of the Army medal, but replaced Minerva with a portrait of Lady Liberty. During the last half of the 19th and through the 20th century, the Medal of Honor's requirements were refined and cemented by Congress and the military. In 1905, President Theodore Roosevelt issued an executive order establishing that the Medal of Honor must be presented with formal and impressive ceremonial by the President or by such representative as the President may designate. Previously, the medal could be handed out in the field or simply mailed through the U.S. Postal Service. In the case of a posthumous award, where a service member has given their life, the medal is presented to the family members as an indelible symbol of their ultimate sacrifice. In 1916, Congress established a review board of 5 generals to assess all medals of honor awarded to that point. The board determined that some medals did not rise to the level of exceptional heroism that the medal represented, and 911 names were withdrawn from the list of Medal of Honor recipients. Among these were Buffalo Bill Cody, and the only woman to receive a Medal of Honor, Dr. Mary Edwards Walker. 6 of those, stripped of their medals, including Cody and Walker, would see them restored in the late 20th century. To this day, Dr. Walker is the only female recipient of the Medal of Honor. In 1918, Congress created other medals for valor in military service in order to honor service members' other acts of dedication and bravery, but maintained the Medal of Honor as the highest honor for service members who act with gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Today, each Medal of Honor recommendation undergoes a scrupulous examination and documentation process, requiring after-action reports, eyewitness statements, and many levels of review to ensure each award is held to the highest standards. Time limits ensure evidence is obtained in a timely manner and that valorous actions are quickly recognized. As the qualifications for the medal were refined to make sure it represented the best of the best, those who showed the highest valor in the most extraordinary circumstances, there were times that it was the nation's attitude toward its service members that needed to be revised. So beginning in the 1990s, there was a greater push to review the efforts of service members who may have been overlooked due to the color of their skin or their religious beliefs. In giving the actions of these veterans a second look, the Medal of Honor could continue to uphold the American ideal that all its citizens were created equal. Throughout our history, since the Civil War, the medal has been presented to service members from the trenches of World War I to the front lines of World War II, from Korea to the jungles of Vietnam and the deserts of the Middle East. And that is the medal's greatest legacy, the selfless actions of those who defended America and her citizens. Though initially shunned by the Founding Fathers, the medal embodies the spirit of the Revolution, that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. For those service members who have received the medal, it is a recognition from their country that we honor their extraordinary heroism and risk of life for us on the battlefield. And for the average citizen, it is a reminder of the courage, commitment, integrity, sacrifice, citizenship, and patriotism that has gone into protecting and providing for our nation and our freedom.